Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our weekly Bible study. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for the feedback. Glad that some of you are being blessed by this. I know I am each week. It's been great for me to kind of get a jump start on our weekend's readings and to give it some thoughts, especially when I'm not preaching. To be able to have thought it over ahead of time has been great for me. And again, I hope that the same is true for you. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the book of Isaiah, in particular chapters 5 and 11. But before we really jump into those two readings, they're each only about 5-7 verses each from each of those chapters. I want to just get us thinking about a topic, and that's the topic of justice. I think that justice is one of those things that we want for other people, but not always for ourselves. What I mean by that is if someone hurts us, or maybe hurts someone we love, or our kids, or someone really close to us, right? We want them brought to justice. We know that that's right. That's what we want. That's what the world needs, is for evil to be put in its place, for wrongdoing to find its end. And so we want justice, but when we're the one who have wronged someone else, when we're the one who has sinned, right, what we tend to want is mercy. So we feel a tension in our own lives, right, between wanting justice, maybe for others, but also wanting mercy for ourselves. On the one hand, we want justice to have the last word, and on the other hand, we want it to be mercy. And so we kind of feel that tension, I think, right, in our own lives. But we also feel the tension in God. I think some of the passages that I get asked about the most and that I scratch my own head over are the passages where we see God's justice and his judgment, right, where he's punishing people. And we see these stories, some of which sound pretty extreme to us, and we think, well, how does that side of God, how does his justice work and play with his mercy, right? They seem to be opposed. And so again, we feel the tension there. And to be honest, I don't know that I'm going to solve the tension. And in fact, I don't know that we're meant to. But I think I just want us to begin to live in that tension, the tension of the Bible between justice and mercy. And while I don't think we'll solve the tension, I do think that God has something to say to us about it. So we'll explore that today as we talk about the justice of God. How about we just jump in a little bit of background about the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah was an 8th century BC prophet, so he is preaching, doing his ministry writing during the time of the divided kingdom. So again, there's a southern kingdom and a northern kingdom. Isaiah's preaching during that time, and he's ministering, prophesying in the southern kingdom. And he's mostly focused on Jerusalem. And that's largely because that's where the capital city was, lots of people there, but also because where the powerful leaders were. And Isaiah has messages for both. At times he's speaking to the common person, and other times he's speaking to the rulers and the powers and the authorities. Isaiah is speaking both a message of justice or judgment, but also of hope. And we see the two kind of going back and forth in the first 39 chapters, although it seems like judgment gets talked about more often in the first half of the book. But there is both. And then the second half of the book, chapters 40 through 66, we see both messages as well, but the focus seems to be on hope. The first 39 chapters deal with the problems arising in Isaiah's own day. He's calling the people to repent from their evil ways. He's warning them about the coming destruction and exile that will happen at the hand of the Assyrians and Babylonians. He's saying, look, if you guys don't turn it around, if you don't start living righteously because you have a righteous God and because he made you righteous, if you don't start acting like who God made you, right, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be justice. You're going to be sent away in exile to Babylon. Your city is going to be destroyed, your temple brought down. And so the first half of the book, chapters 1 through 39, again, are focusing on that. Isaiah calling his people repent, although there is hope there too. He does preach that. The second half of the book, though, looks ahead to a day long past Isaiah's own day, to a day after the exile. And the picture there we get is a picture of God mercifully calling his people back home, having punished them, having brought justice against sin and wickedness. And God's final word is going to be one of kindness and grace, forgiveness, and life. So there are some differences between what is often referred to as the first book of Isaiah, chapters 1 through 39, and then the second book of Isaiah, chapters 40 through 66. One is dealing with Isaiah's own day, and one with a day still to come. So that's a little bit of background on the book of Isaiah. How about we just jump in now to chapter 5? And our first reading is going to be from verses 1 through 7, I think is where we'll end up. So how about I just read a little bit for us and we'll talk as we go along. The song starts like this. Isaiah says, "I will sing for the one I loved, a song about his vineyard." So much of what we're about to read is going to be a song. And it's Isaiah singing, and he's singing for the one that he loves. And he doesn't tell us who that is right away, although it'll become obvious that this is God. God is the one that Isaiah loves. And so he's going to sing about the song of God's vineyard. And so right away, the image that we're getting is of God as a gardener, right? That God has this vineyard that he's going to plant. And might be an interesting way for you to picture God. I don't know if you often imagine him as a gardener, but it shouldn't be surprising, right? Think of Genesis chapters 1 and 2. God is doing exactly that. He's planting a garden in Eden. He's taking care of it. He uses Adam and Eve to tend to it. But right from the beginning, one of the first images we get of God is as a gardener. And actually, this is one of Isaiah's favorite ways of talking about God. God as a gardener is something that he'll use, an image that he'll come back to over and over and over again. And we see it happening here. So again, Isaiah's singing a song. I wish we had the tune so we could sing along. Well, no one wants me to sing along, but we have it here. So let's listen to the song. He says, "My loved one," and again, that's God. God had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. So a beautiful garden, maybe not all that different than the Garden of Eden. He dug it up and cleared it of stones and planted it with the choicest of vines. Right away, God is he's doing things right? He's not doing this haphazardly. He's not taking any shortcuts. He's digging up the soil, clearing it of all the stones, planting it with the choicest of vines. Second best won't do here. He builds a watchtower in it and cut out a wine press in it as well, right? So that he can watch and be and live amongst his people right in the middle of the vineyard, right? And then reap the fruit of the vineyard as well with the wine press. Again, God is setting himself up for success. But then it goes on and says, then he looked for good grapes, because that's what you would expect, right? Having done all this hard work. And if you've ever gardened and put all that work, right, you don't do it expecting bad. You do it expecting a harvest. But it yielded only bad fruit. And here's where the song begins to turn, right? At first, if you were in Isaiah's own day, someone walking around the streets of Jerusalem, and you hear Isaiah singing this song, right? You're like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. And maybe you kind of think you know where it's going. Of course, Isaiah's talking about God. He loves us. We're his people, like his vineyard, and he cares for us, and he's there for us. He's given us everything we need. Yes, yes, yes. But now the song begins to turn. God looked for good grapes. He expected them, but this vineyard he's planted of Israel yielded only bad fruit. I should have mentioned this song. It has a deeper purpose. In fact, some people have called it a parable, right? Parables are kind of these stories about earthly things that have a deeper meaning to them, and that's what it seems like is going on here. He's not just singing about a vineyard. He's singing about something else. Let's go on. Maybe we'll find out exactly who that is. Now the song changes, and it seems like it's actually God who's speaking now. In verse 3, it says, "Now you dwellers in Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard." So this is God speaking now. So who's right? God is saying, right? Am I in the right, or are my wicked, evil, sinful, hard-hearted people in the right? So judge between us. You decide. So let me tell you, what more could have been done for my vineyard than I have done for it? And everyone's saying nothing, right? You've done everything. You built a watchtower, you dug it up, you cleared it of stones, you planted it with choice. It's fine. You put a wine press in it. You couldn't have done anything more. But when I looked for good grapes, why did it yield it only bad? Well, now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it will be destroyed. I will break down its wall, and it will be trampled. Well, here we see that God not only built a hedge, and many vineyards in Israel contained a bushy hedge around them to offer protection. most likely from animals. But he also built a wall around his vineyard, right? And God had protected and cared for his people. He was strong and powerful in that way. But now God is going to take those things away. He's going to let his vineyard, Israel, be destroyed. He's going to let it be trampled. And not just because he feels like it, right? But because it yielded only bad fruit. Let's keep going. Verse 6, I will make it a wasteland, neither pruned nor cultivated, and briars and thorns will grow there. I will command the clouds not to rain on it. Well, now it's obvious that this is God. If we were doubting it at all, only God can command the clouds not to rain. And that's what God is going to do. Not only is he going to remove his protection, he's going to stop the heavens from watering the earth. Finally, verse 7, the vineyard of the Lord Almighty is the nation of Israel, and the people of Judah are the vines he delighted in. So now Isaiah is explaining what's going on here, right? God is this master gardener. He planted the vineyard. That is his people, Israel. And the people of Judah are the vines he delighted in, the one he cared so much for about. It says, and he looked for justice, but saw bloodshed. Now, in English, this is not obvious at all, but in Hebrew it is. The words for justice and bloodshed are almost exactly the same word. It's about a letter difference in Hebrew. There's a play on words going here. God looked for one thing, and he found another. But it looked like what he was looking for on the outside. It's maybe a way of referring to the hypocrisy of Israel. The people looked the part. They looked like they were just, but they were actually sowing blood. God looked for righteousness. Same thing is happening here. The word for cries and righteousness in Hebrew are almost the same word, one letter difference. So again, they looked righteous on the outside. They played the part, but instead they were causing tears through their bloodshed and their evil and their wickedness. Again, this is a message of justice and judgment for the people. And it's hard for us to read passages like this. Not only because we have a hard time maybe picturing God doing this to his ancient people, but we wonder, well, what about me? Maybe I'm all that different. And what does that mean about what God will do to me in my own day? So we have this story of justice. Now, two things we need to remember. The Bible was not written to us, right? God is writing this song to an ancient people, the people of Israel, who in Isaiah's day had wandered and rebelled and all of those things. And so what we read about happening here is not written to us, but that being said, the Bible is always written for us, right? That through this ancient song written to an ancient people on the other side of the world thousands of years ago, God still has something for us today. And I think we can't read this song and not consider our own lives. Consider the ways that God has cared for us. Maybe he's given you faithful parents. He brought you to baptism. Myself, I went to our Christian school across the street from where I'm sitting. I've had wonderful role models. I've been fed the body and blood of Jesus week after week after week. And so I think I'm meant to consider the ways in which God has cared for me. And yet the ways in which I haven't lived up to my family name, that I haven't acted like who my God is and who he made me to be, right? He's made me righteous through his blood, through his cross. So why don't I act like that? He sanctified me. He's set apart. So why does my life sometimes bear bad fruit, right? This song was not written to us, but it is written for us. The whole Bible is. And so we ought to consider, what is God saying to me today? How is he convicting me in my own sin? It's a message of justice. And yet God's justice, it seems, is always a restorative justice. Restorative justice is justice, like it sounds, which is meant to restore. It's not punishment for the sake of punishment. It's not punishment merely given out of anger, but it's a punishment that is meant to restore a relationship. So there are actually countries and municipalities and states across the world that have enacted restorative justice measures. So if someone, I'll try to think of an example, steals a candy bar from a store, rather than just sending them to prison 5 years, because that's what you get when you steal a candy bar, and good luck when you get out, right? You steal a candy bar, but then you're maybe sent to prison because there's still justice, but there are measures taken to restore the relationship between you and the candy store owner. So rather than the candy store owner just feeling angry at you for the rest of his life because you stole his candy bar, and you being angry at the system or the police or whoever for catching you in your sin and then wallowing in those wasted 5 years, right? There are measures put in place, programs to help restore relationships, right? So that there's a purpose to the justice, and that is human flourishing and union and restoration. And praise be to God, we see glimpses of this kind of restorative justice in our world today, even in this fallen world. And it seems like this is what God has in mind for his people too, that this justice isn't just for the sake of anger, but there's a point to it. So let's look at our next reading, because I think this will help flesh things out for us. We'll take a look at Isaiah chapter 11. So let me get that up for us. So we've already read about the justice that will come. God's going to tear down his winepress, let it be torn down when he removes his protection and stops the rain from coming. But that's not the final word. Right? So the second reading we have, the second part of our reading from Isaiah that we have this weekend is Isaiah 11. And this is what it says. Out of that nothingness, out of that wasteland of a former vineyard that was fruitless, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. Oh my goodness, the destruction and ruin of Israel is not the last word. God's not going to let that happen. Now, it's interesting that the shoot comes from the stump of Jesse. And of course, that could just be a reminder of the promise God made to King David. Jesse was the father of David, I should mention. So it could just be a way of referring to the Davidic kingdom that God had promised David in 2 Samuel 7, that one of his sons would reign and rule forever. So this could just be a way of saying, look, out of that wasteland, through the Davidic line that I had promised in 2 Samuel 7, I'm going to work something good. Or it could be a way of saying, look, what I'm about to do isn't going to come from the pomp and power and circumstance of a royal Davidic line. No, I'm going to work something from Jesse. Jesse, David's father, was not a king. Right? Jesse was a farmer, a herdsman, a shepherd. So I'm going to work something amazing out of lowliness. Could be what it means. I tend to favor that way of thinking about it. So out of this nothingness will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. God's going to get the fruit that he was looking for in his vineyard one way or another. And if his people won't give it to him, he'll bring it to bear. So this shoot is going to come. And this one, who we know as Jesus, I'll just kind of spoil things for you. This is a messianic prophecy that out of nothingness, God is going to send his son Jesus in lowliness from the stump of Jesse in humility, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. There's going to be something different about Jesus. He's not just going to be another person with worldly power. No, he's going to have supernatural, otherworldly power that comes from the fact that the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, which it did in his baptism. It's a spirit of wisdom and of understanding, a spirit of counsel and of might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. This one, we know as Jesus, is going to be different than everyone else. He's going to delight in the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees like all of us tend to do, or decide what he hears with his ears. No, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He's going to take the side of the forgotten and the overlooked and the beat down. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. So there is justice coming. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. And in this day, we're going a little bit past our reading for today, or for this weekend, but I think it's important to finish this out. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw with the ox. It's this beautiful picture, right, of people living together in harmony. The infant will play near the cobra's den, the young child would put his hand into the viper's nest. Yet they will not harm or destroy on all my holy mountain. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So Isaiah 5 reminds us that justice is coming. God can't let evil and wickedness just to continue to flourish and grow. That wouldn't be right. We need justice, just like we know we need it today deep down inside. But God also has a word of hope for us, a hope that comes from his mercy. The mercy that caused God to send his own son Jesus into the world, to grow out of our nothingness, the barrenness of our sin, grace and mercy and life. And Isaiah 11 is reminding us that we look ahead to a day of goodness and unity, of where all things will be renewed and restored in our Savior Jesus. See, I don't think I've solved the tension. There's justice, but there's also mercy. There's punishment, but there's compassion. There's righteousness, but there's love. And while it's hard for us to live with both or to execute both in our own lives, like I don't know how to be at the same time just but merciful, well, God does. So the tension isn't solved, but we are led to trust and to believe that God can hold two things together in exactly the way that they need to be held. He will bring an end to evil. He will not let it flourish or win, but he will have compassion and mercy. And it's all through his son, Jesus. That root that will come forth from the stump. I hope that you're blessed by this time again. Hope to give you just a little bit more to think about. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. God bless your week.